We've talked quite a bit lately about different forges and forge fuels and some specifics about coal forges, and the term clinker comes up. And I made the assumption that most people knew what a clinker was, and I shouldn't have done that because apparently that's a new term to a lot of people that are just getting into blacksmithing. So I thought I would take just a minute or two here and do another real quick video on the differences between coal, coke, and clinker. Coal is the raw fuel. This is what is dug out of the ground. It is hard. It is dark black. It's shiny. You want pieces in this size range, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Little pebbles are pretty nice. 1.5 inches might be okay. But this has all the impurities. This has the sulfur and all the other junk in it that you don't want. That's bad for the metal. It makes too much smoke. It does not produce as much heat in this form as it does if you turn it to coke. And as you burn that stuff off, it changes from coal to coke. Coke is to coal what charcoal is to wood. So if you've ever cleaned out a campfire and there's a bunch of little lumps of charcoal left from where you had logs, that's the same process more or less. You're driving off all the volatiles. Coke is light. It's kind of fluffy almost. It breaks up very easily, and sometimes this is actually kind of a powdered coal that I was burning, and it forms into bigger lumps than the coal was. So that's a good way to tell coke when it starts to form up like this. It's black, but it's dull. It's not shiny like the coal was. And this is what you actually burn in the fire. You're converting coal into coke around the perimeter of the fire, and when you actually bring it in to burn it and work in it, you want to be working in coke. And once you do this and you have a fire you've put out and you can compare the difference between the coke and the coal, you'll understand it very clearly. It's not something you'll have to go back and revisit too many times. You'll know what the coal looks like and what the coke looks like. Clinker, on the other hand, is all the impurities that came out of the coal and dripped and drooled down the sides of your fire pot. It's the little bits you burned off the end of your piece you were working on because you weren't paying attention. It's welding flux. It's dirt. It's just everything that shouldn't be in the fire ends up in this hard glass-like mass, kind of silvery, kind of shiny. It's got ash stuck to it. It plugs up your fire pot. It is nasty, terrible stuff. You can't do anything with it except throw it in a pothole on the driveway, and it's not bad for that. But it doesn't burn. It doesn't offer any heat. It keeps your fire from getting hot, and it does not consume any oxygen while it's in the fire, so you can actually over-oxidize material and burn it at lower heats because you've got too much oxygen, but you don't have enough heat to actually forge with. So it's really kind of a nasty nuisance. And this has to be taken out of the fire regularly. If you've got really clean coal and you're not welding, you might get a day's worth of work in without worrying about the clinker. If you're welding in the fire and you've got flux and you've got the high heat, or if you have coal that's generally dirty in the first place, you're going to need to clean out your clinkers way more often. This stuff in here, this is coke. This is what you want to be burning. And you can kind of see this big fluffy piece here that I'm pulling out. That's all coke. That's all good stuff. But if you fish down in the bottom of the fire, so I'm going to have a nice clean fire now and I'm not going to have a clinker, you might be able to find a clinker. You can usually feel them. If you let them sit for a while, they get hard. That's a clinker. So that's a bit of a clinker. Sometimes these things are just massive, and they hold together very well, and they're very easy to get out. So one problem with the coal that I've had lately is it seems to make really fragile clinkers. They don't come out in big pieces. They come out in little chunks, and it's just a real pain because you can't actually just dig in here and pick out one nice big clinker and call it good. But that gives you just a little idea of what you're looking for. You can feel the clinker, and you get in here and you can clean that stuff out for the most part. And if you're planning on going back to work, just don't tear your fire up too much. You can push all this stuff back in. Try to put the coke back in Leave the coke on the outside, or excuse me, push the coke back in and leave the coal on the outside of the fire where it was, and you can go back to work.